I'm curious actually from you, because like as a like personal trainer for so long, where like consistency and like discipline kind of comes hand in hand, and even just with like how you care for your body. So like I'm curious as to your standpoint now, especially also on the spiritual path, like what your views on it, on your take on it, and how I guess you're applying it in the ways that you were.
On what? On this discipline?
Yeah.
Well, I think about, and I've been revisiting some of the work from my first spiritual teacher on the topic of discipline, and one of the things that he really stresses is that the spiritual path, similar to the fitness path, is really about developing a high sense of discipline, right? And exacting your force of willpower, right? Every time you have the opportunity to. And one of the things that he was doing in his training to help him to not just develop discipline, but also to quiet the ego, right? Quiet the mind, is to basically frame his whole day with different practices that require discipline, right? Getting up at 4 a.m., going for an hour walk, no matter what the weather is, right? Not having an opinion about the weather. That was a big one. It's like, just do weather and not have an opinion about it.
So no matter what, rain, snow, sunshine.
Because your mind is gonna, or the ego is gonna say a lot of things about it. And part of the training is to just quiet it and just be neutral, no matter what. Right? None of this, I'm cold, or I hate the rain, or anything like that. It's just, or it's too hot. Right? It's just quiet. And that's part of the mental training, right? To have discipline on controlling the mind, right? Keeping the ego in check. It's all about developing a strong sense of character, right? And treating your word as law, because that's something that's training something deep within you, right? And if you're doing what you said you were going to do, that's the reason itself, right? You do it because you said you would, you know. And there doesn't have to be necessarily an end objective other than,
right.
You know, I want to train my discipline muscle. Yeah, and quiet the chatter of the mind. The conscious mind is the one that has preferences, right? That has opinions, that has judgments, right? The higher self, relating to what MJ was saying, is neutral. It's unemotional, right? So that's how you know. That's how you know what's right, right? You say what you're gonna do,
And you do it, and that's where the discipline.
Yeah.
That's where the consistency and discipline come in.
Just knowing the resistance is coming from the ego or the conscious mind. Right.
So what happens when, because we're human, so what happens when the fuck-ups happen? Like how do you manage that? Because like in the times that you're not disciplined, or the times that you're, for example, 3:15 is my wake up. I didn't set my alarm and I wake up at 4 o'clock instead. Right. So how do you handle the inconsistencies?
Well, hold on. My first question is, when that happened, how did you feel?
I didn't have a feeling about it.
It was okay. Like,
yeah.
So it's not really
it's actually grace is like when the topic of self-love, for example, comes up. Lesson 1 for me is always grace for yourself, like always, because like it just is. Like to me, you can't have self-love without it, and like you can't, to me anyway, you can't achieve any like real whole measure of success without having grace for yourself to the best of your ability. And you can't for me, I can't even attempt to try a new habit, attempt to try a new skill, attempt to try anything else if I don't have grace for when I mess up. Because the way that the patterns of my mind, it's just like, nope, you messed up, you cannot do it, your word is not law, and what are you even doing, bud? What are you even doing?
Yeah.
And so for me, that's...
It sounds like you have the answer then.
What was the question?
Well, you asked the question. What do you do when you fall?
I'm just because I'm curious as to how everyone else does it. That's
Yeah,
why.
I would say the same thing. The first thing that is to notice the reaction.
Yeah, because I can definitely relate to that, but more in the sense of like, okay, like example for me is like, okay, I was going to go to bed at this time, but I saw something online that I wanted to watch and decided to watch that for a couple hours, and then it prolongs like when I go to sleep, which affects how I wake up, right? And then the question is, how does that affect me? It doesn't affect me well. And your question is, how do I deal with that? And the way that I personally have been dealing with it is just not to let it, I guess, affect me, and then the next day, like, correct it. Like, let go of the mistake, and the next day try to correct it and not make that same mistake. But not get hung up on the mistake that you made. Not be so attached to it. Because I don't think we're always going to be perfect and not make mistakes.
You have to decide that that's an exception to the rule, right? And then let it go and move on.
Yeah, and that's, you know, easier kind of said than done sometimes.
So that's what I'm trying to lean into. So it's just like, so for those exceptions, for the deviations, like what is your tool for letting go in order to stay consistent, in order to continue on a path of discipline rather than just throw out the baby with the bathwater?
So I'm going to answer that first, just because my answer to that is simply trying to focus on what I did positive that day, right? If I made a mistake and there was something that set me off my path, then going back to like thinking about, okay, in that day, where were my wins, right? What can I be celebrating and what can I focus on from a positive perspective? That enables me to continue to move forward and stuff, because I've realized like in every day, not everything's going to work out perfectly. Like we're going to have slip ups and we're going to get off track and stuff like that. But if you focus on those things and let them overpower you, you're just going to go in a downward spiral, right? By just accepting them and not being attached to it and focusing on the positive things that happen, for me anyway, that enables me to still be in like a positive mindset and the next day to kind of carry on.
Right.
But yeah, I'm curious for you guys, like.
Very similar. Compassion first, same as grace, and
Compassion for yourself?
for myself, yeah, because we're all humans. We're going to make mistakes, and also things out of our control is going to come into whatever discipline that we try to create, and then letting go, like you said, just let it go and move on. Because if you attach yourself to it too much, then you're going to derail even more. So,
yeah, I agree with that.
Discipline for me, it's like also like I try to have a schedule, but every so often something happens, like there's a project, there's a client, so like my night routine, the time that I go to bed, all that kind of like goes out the window. And then I'm like, you know what? I can't control that. All I can do is like, what's the next best thing that I can do based on that? Because this is happening for a reason. So accept it. Don't resist it. Be compassionate for yourself, let go, and then move on.
Yeah, give yourself permission to have an off day. Everybody has off days once in a while.
So next question, as kind of like a devil's advocate or dovetailing off of that, when I guess kind of like at what point do you, if there is one, to stop making exceptions, or like at what point does does your word become law, like an immutable thing? And is that maybe what does that take, I guess, might be a better question. I guess this is theorizing now.
Well, you can't have control over everything.
I don't,
At
for
least the
sure.
way that I see it is like, your word is law, that's great, but also the universe is at work. So
Well, you
whatever
can't control,
you do, you
you're saying
can't control.
external things that are
Exactly.
going on, right?
So whatever
Yeah.
you can't control, you can't beat yourself up over it because you can't control it.
Fair enough.
Like, it is what
So-
it is. So
Yeah, I think that's where it gets interesting. You said you can't, but you do. The reality is most people do beat themselves up about it.
oh yeah,
Right?
that's what I'm saying. But I mean, the external force that keeps you from being 100% disciplined, like that your word is law. There's only so much you can do because you're not just you. There's everything around you that's going on. So that's why it's going to happen.
Basically, what that question is asking is, when do you achieve perfection?
Well, I wouldn't phrase it as that.
It seems like
Never.
that.
But well,
When you're not making.
I don't think it's perfection.
because to me, perfection, everything is perfect. That like in a perpetual state.
Like I think it's more about when you're in a certain situation, how do you analyze the situation and make the right decision that's going to most benefit you in the future, right? And I had this conversation the other day, and it's like, you know, you're trying to diet, let's just say, and there's a table and there's a plate and there's like ice cream and all these amazing things that you're so like, you know, attracted to, and you want all these things. How do you be disciplined and say, no, I know it's going to satisfy me now, but it's not going to satisfy me in the long term, right? So, and that could be related to so many different things, like going to the gym, staying fit, right? Meditating, your morning routine, running a business, right? If you get a client, that's great, but what happens when you don't get a client? How do you continuously, you know, make those right decisions?
Well, I personally follow a 90-10 rule when it comes to my own diet. So 90% of the time I can control it, and it's usually pretty good. And 10%, either I'm going to plan for that, or I'll just allow myself to have be a little bit flexible.
So when it comes to your diet, then you probably say you're pretty disciplined. Yes?
Yeah. But the thing is, at a certain point, it doesn't really feel like discipline anymore, because it's just something that you embody. It's just part of you.
You have a new norm, kind of.
Right? That's your standard.
Yeah.
And
That's
I think,
interesting, actually.
yeah.